below the horizon, and we have that beautiful reddish orange glow in the sky. Hello everybody, it's live coverage of the 24 hours of Paul RICARD, part of the Hankook International Endurance Series here on RadioLeMans.com. And next up we've got night practice, one of my favourite times of the race weekend, and it's all live here on RadioLeMans.com.
I'm just grabbing people before they go out. J.M. Littman, the sun is going down behind the mountain. 73, Porsche about to go out. It's getting real now, isn't it? Night practice.
You know what, I picked a challenge here. It's a really difficult car to get to grips with and be on pace. The track's really complicated, but look at this scene. I mean, wow, it's beautiful here. The sun down here is the light's somewhat different, isn't it?
It certainly is, and as the sun goes down, particularly in summer, you get the famous smell of the herbs around here at Circuit Paul RICARD. It is finding its magic.
It's a magical time, it's a magical light at the moment, and I'm really grateful to be here.
And you've done your own magic, because 3 of your team have been shrunken down into little driver figurines. We're just going to go and have a look at them and show the public what you've been up to. I think you're onto a winner here. Hold on, here comes the cameraman. This is what every team will need. For the Radio Le Mans team, they might need a slightly larger figurine for us, but JM, another twist, leading the market. Good stuff.
Oh, we definitely need the posable RadioLeMans.com team. Action toys. RadioLeMans.com, posable action figures is definitely the way forward for us. Hello everybody, welcome along. We'll be joining in sound and vision with our colleagues from TV just down towards pit out in a few moments' time. Gives me the opportunity to welcome you all to the south of France. That's where we are, overlooking the brilliant scene of a very full pit lane, a hugely packed paddock. Barely get anything else in there without the use of liquid soap and a shoehorn, frankly. This is the 5th round of the Hankook 24-hour series for 2016, and it brings the GT and the touring cars back together and puts them on the circuit at the same time. 51 cars will be competing over the 24 hours at the weekend in the series, which is powered by Hankook tyres, which, remember, think back, started in the second weekend of January at Dubai and has grown through the years from that single race now to an FIA approved series, the International Endurance Series. And this, our first time as RadioLeMans.com down here covering this race at RICARD, a circuit that is perfectly suited to the endurance ethos of this series. Built in 1969, former home of the French Grand Prix. And why isn't it back here? And why don't we have a French Grand Prix? That's a chat for dinner tomorrow evening with the rest of the team. But it certainly has lent itself very well this weekend, using the 5.842 kilometre version of the circuit, of which I think there's 176 different versions that can be used, including, I think, 2 at the same time. For those that look into these things, make a note, it's the track iteration 1C-V2. Okay, we'll be asking questions about that later. Stand by in a moment or two's time on 24hseries.com and RadioLeMans.com. We'll be bringing you the session right the way through. It's 90 minutes. It's all live here, and in just a moment or two's time, if you flick onto 24hseries.com or to RadioLeMans.
Oh, this side. Xavier Marson, you can hardly see, the sun is shining into your eyes, but this point in the evening at Paul Ricard, you've got a smile in your face. Your crew topping the 991 class, and by a good margin.
Yeah, we had a really good run. Yesterday we lost a little bit of time in free practice in the optional test, but today we had a good run in free practice. Already had one run where I wasn't really happy with the car and new tires, but we made some changes for qualifying, and it was absolutely flying, the car, so I was really happy with it. Did a really good lap time and had a quite big margin to number 2, so we're happy for the moment.
Now, how much as the cars go out around the circuit at Paul Ricard does the rubber get put down? Because quite now the temperature's dropping, the track should be fantastic.
Yeah, it's difficult to say based on how the setup of the car is, because I think during the night the car will be a lot different than during the day when it's really hot. So we're really looking to see what we can do also during the race with little adaptations, maybe to an anti-roll bar, to even make the car different for the night and for the hot day. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be a long race, that's for sure.
Who's out in the 78 MRS Porsche at the moment? Which of the 4? Obviously not you.
No, I'm here. It's Charlie Putman is out first. I'm in next. And then we have Charles Espenlaub, and then a little bit of a longer run for Joe Foster, who didn't do many laps yet. So we'll get him in tonight, do a couple of more laps, and then we should be ready for tomorrow. I'm
sure you will. Best of luck. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Down in the pit lane with Brice Jones and Xavier Marson from the pole sitting Porsche in class, the MRS racing car. Just a little thing to put right at the start of this broadcast. The leader in SP2, pole sitting SP2 class, was the Mark Ford, the Mark Ford powered Mazda, the silhouette car. And although the timing was telling us that was Rob Nern in that, it was in fact Rick Breukers in that car who hauled it up from 6th in class right at the end of the qualifying session a couple of hours ago. Hauled it right up to pole position. Haven't heard that there's been any changes in that category, although there were a couple of laps that were disallowed in that. Paul Truswell is with me in our broadcast centre trackside.
Yeah, one other correction as well to things that we said earlier on. In actual fact, the fastest lap we've had this weekend wasn't set in the qualifying session, because in the optional private test that was yesterday, we had a 2 minute 7.0 set by the Scuderia Praha Ferrari. Now, we were being told it was very, very windy yesterday, and I suspect that might have contributed to that being a particularly fast lap time. Of course, in some ways you want the wind behind you to just bowl you along, but in other areas you want the wind ahead of you, because it'll actually give you a little bit more downforce, more speedy air going over your wings, gives you obviously a little bit more downforce. So if the wind conditions were just right, that could have explained why Scuderia Praha were able to go quicker in yesterday's optional 3 test session, 2 minutes 7.0, as opposed to the pole position time, for it is a pole position time, not to be affected by the times to be set in the night practice, of a 2 minute 7.1. So today's time is not as quick as yesterday, but it was the time of the DriveX Audi set by Juan Cruz Alvarez, who set the pole position time, and that was the quickest time that we've had today at 2 minutes 7.17, and not, strictly speaking, the quickest time of the weekend. The other piece of news just coming up from earlier on today, we had the MSG Motorsport Porsche 991 Cup car, Jose Manuel Balbiani, stopped out on the circuit with a gearbox problem. That car is having a new big gearbox fitted, and I think it's actually already been fitted, and the car has been out already. So very quick at the repair or replacement of that gearbox, and so that car is already out on the circuit. Main job for the moment, John, is going to be to get your car out and get your drivers qualified. Each of the drivers is required by the regulations to do 2 laps in this night practice session. Once he's done those 2, even if it's not properly dark, he's qualified as far as the race is concerned. However, of course, you do have to make sure that the drivers know their way around and that the lights are pointing in the right direction. And of course, the other thing, we were mentioning it earlier on, is the route into the pit lane, into the refueling refueling zone. When it gets properly dark, and that's a technical term, properly dark, that's a route that you need to be able to find and make sure that you're comfortable with, because what you don't want to be doing in the race situation is suddenly coming across something that you haven't seen before going into the pit lane.
Absolutely true. One thing I noticed that isn't being utilised here, that we're used to seeing in the WEC events here, is when cars are coming out of the pit lane to rejoin the front straight on driver's right, there is a pit lane marker there, which is a thick black unbroken white, a thick unbroken white line, which as you come out the pitch you're not allowed to cross. Now normally what happens is there's a trigger point somewhere down the pit lane and an arrow comes out, a fluorescent arrow, so that people coming down the pit straight are aware that there's someone coming out, and at that point they have to stay to the left hand side of that white line. Now that's not happening at the moment. I don't know if that system isn't being utilised this weekend, but that does strike me as something that we need to keep an eye on, for particularly during the race. If you've got 2 or 3 cars abreast coming down the pit lane, coming down the front straight, and someone coming out the pit lane, it could be a cause of some issue. So we're underway for night practice, 7 minutes in. Times tonight we will give you, but don't get overly excited about them, because Paul, whilst they are interesting for us in terms of being able to say this car's faster than another car, they're not standing for anything. The grids are now, bar any technical infringement or issue, the grids are set.
Yes. The things that aren't set are what the balance of performance might be, or what the classification into A6 Pro and A6 AM might be. But no, this is a sort of time where folk like me get very, very excited, because I start looking at average lap times and such like. Although having said that, I'm not going to do that just yet, because I suspect that most of the activity for the first 40 minutes of this session, I was going to say half an hour, but we'll say 40 minutes of the session, most of the activity for the start of the session at least is going to be get your drivers qualified. That's going to be job one. When they've done that, then they'll worry about doing things like working out how much tyre wear they're going to have. I think it was Tom Onslow-Cole we were hearing from earlier on, who was telling us that they are pretty sure that they can single stint these tyres, which is good, obviously.
Yeah, that's always a help, I think.
That's kind of fairly critical, but it means that the fuel runs out before the tyres run out. What they're not sure of is whether they can get 2 stints out of the tyre. Now, of course, with this session only being 90 minutes long, it's not really long enough for them to prove it, unless they've been canny and put on some used tyres that they've used earlier on, and that they're now putting on. So they'll be putting out a driver, or even all 4 drivers or 5 drivers, if they've got that many in the car for this session. They'll just leave them on the same set of tyres, and then they can get an idea of what the tyre wear will be during the race itself. And of course that will be critical, and I would expect them to be able to double stint during the night, certainly, and from this point on, as it gets a little bit cooler, the track temperatures will a little bit more slowly also come down, and that will enable them to, as I say, I think they'll be able to double stint fairly comfortably, because these Hankooks have proved very, very durable, very, very reliable tyres, and consistent as well. That's the other key thing that drivers say. They want to be consistent in the tyre usage.
So get down to the pit lane again. Bruce Jones has the early shift. Will cycle Owen Mildenhall and Joe Bradley through at roughly half an hour stints. Where are you, Bruce?
I'm very near pit entry, actually, looking at the cars. You've been describing them coming out of the refueling area. Huge lawn, and I found Jamie Campbell-Walter, who hasn't been here for a few years. What were you last in before you joined Ram Racing for the Mercedes crew?
I was last here in the FIA GT1 World Championship with Nissan, Sumo Power. I think 2010 was me and Warren Hughes, and then in 11 was with David Brabham. So, a few years, but yeah, I've done lots of miles around here though. We used to do our 24-hour tests prior to Le Mans in the creation days. So, yeah, lots of miles around here.
But Paul Ricard at night, presumably quite a different feel to Paul Ricard at day.
Yeah, it is. It's quite dark, this track, actually. They haven't got any lights around it. It's not like Daytona, which is daylight. Le Mans actually has all the corners pretty well lit actually, and here there is nothing. This is very similar to Spa 24 Hour, where once you've gone through Eau Rouge, that's it, it's darkness until you get back to the bus stop. So yeah, well, hopefully the Mercedes has got good lights though.
Well, I was just about to ask, how are you finding the AMG Mercedes? A new tool for this year, working well.
It's a great car. I mean, they've done a lot of development on it, obviously, and it's very, very easy to drive. But everything happens slowly. There's no snappiness or anything like that. So, yeah, you can tell it's a well-sorted car, and really nice to drive actually. Really
easy to understand why it's so popular in a series like Creventic.
Yeah, I think they've done everything about it. Well, they all have now. Audi, Mercedes, everyone. Life mileage on the engine, gearbox, prop shaft, all the suspension life. Apparently the engine can do 22,000 kilometres, so it's immense, for teams and the cost savings, which, you obviously see GT3 going from strength to strength worldwide.
Well, that's why every weekend there's not one GT3 race around the world, but many. This weekend, one of the examples. Best of luck for the race, Jamie.
Thanks very much.
Lovely to see Jamie Campbell, Walter back in a another new set of overalls. Looking forward to the challenge of this place of an evening and of a very dark night. Won't be too long a night here, Paul. Our longest darkness races in terms of sunset and sunrise, it's a toss-up, isn't it, between Dubai and Daytona,
yes,
because of where they are in the year and where they are around the world.
Yes, I think Dubai just won this year, but it was only by a matter of minutes.
And it can change year on year depending on which actual weekend. The Brno 24 hours, which is now being extended to 24 hours in October. Now that's going to depend. Well, will it depend when the clocks change? I suppose not. We'll still have the same amount of darkness. It depends when the race starts, but it's going to be very interesting. That's going to be another long darkness stint.
It is, and yes, because of course it's not that far north, is it? No, it's south of here probably. I'm not quite sure of my lines of latitude when we get across as far east as the Czech Republic. But sundown here is at 9:15 this evening,
which is in about 3 minutes.
Which is very, very shortly. We saw a lovely shot on the screen a moment ago of the shadows just lighting up on the mountain sides, not very far from here. It'll come up tomorrow morning at 12 minutes past 6. I need to check what time it's going to come up on Sunday morning, but it won't be that far away from.
No, indeed. It'll be a couple of minutes, won't it? Yeah.
So you're talking about 9 hours of sun being under the horizon. Of course, that means that a little bit less than that of full darkness, because it takes round about half an hour or so for darkness to fall after the sun sets.
So what did you say that would be, about
9 hours
right.
Of sun being below the horizon.
Yeah. I think and what did we think Dubai and Daytona are? It's more than 12, isn't it?
It's something like 14.
Yeah. So Brno's going to be pretty close to that, I would think, at that time of the year. It's probably far enough north. It's much further north than either Daytona or Dubai. It'll just depend on the time of year and the equinox, won't it? So we'll have to work that one out. Quite looking forward to hearing that.
It's all available on the internet.
Quite looking forward to that. So if somebody can work that out for me, that'd be brilliant.
No, I don't have a screen spare for looking that one up, but there's a time and date website that tells you the sun up and sundown times.
That is this year's Brno 12 hours, by the way. If you missed the news on Midweek Motorsport breaking on Wednesday, whilst we were on the air, it has been confirmed this weekend by Creventic, the organisers of the Hankook International Endurance Series, that the Brno 12 hours will be double your money. Buy one 12-hour race, get the second one free, and it will run directly afterwards. It becomes a 24-hour competition at Brno later on in the year. Long, dark, cold night there. Very interesting to see how that will race. Speaking to the organisers, Creventic, been in discussions with their teams. They have asked for more longer races, and when next year's calendar, which comes out shortly, is confirmed, there will be more longer races.
I just hope someone has told the marshals, because the great unsung heroes
Agreed.
tend to be the last ones to be asked. And that's, I'm sure actually Creventic will have thought of it.
I'm told by Tim Gray back in London. Good evening, Tim. It's 18:27 sundown on the weekend of the 24-hour race at Brno, and 07:14 up, so 12:47 of darkness. So,
okay, so not as long.
I don't think that's as long as Daytona and Dubai.
But yeah, no, I think that's great news. I've never been to the Czech Republic in its current form, no, if you're looking for somebody to come along, then I'll put my hand up now.
You might be otherwise engaged that weekend.
Thought you might have something else for me to do somehow, but never mind.
It's quite a busy weekend, that, as many of our weekends tend to be, and I'm just waiting to be told from RSL Mission Control back in the UK about some additional races that we're going to be announcing shortly. In fact, I think we can go down to Bruce. In fact, sorry, I know we can go down to Bruce. I tell other people off for doing that, so I'll tell myself off as well. Bruce Jones is down in the pit lane.
I have found Alexandra Coigny, who's got out of the most spectacular looking car I've seen in the series, the Vortex V10. Alexandra, tell us about the car to start with.
Well, it's a Vortex, as you call it. It's a cubic building car, like a silhouette, with the Corvette engine into it. It's a very light car. It's like just over a ton for about 600 horsepower into it. So it's very powerful, really effective. But as it's an artisanal building, it takes some time to shake it down and have it correctly built up and set up.
Now, we saw this in qualifying. You ended up without a time. What went wrong?
Well, we had some issue with the starter, as I said before. It is an issue that we have with the car for quite a while. We keep on working on it, and now it seems that we have to find out just a piece to change. Normally those things is troubleshooting on little stupid details, but then, I mean, it takes some time, and then it seems that it starts, so let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. Now, what's the plan for the car for the rest of this year? Will we see it in more Creventic 24-hour races?
Yeah, probably, yeah. The idea was just to do, as it's the first season of the car, we are just doing the BDB the whole season, and we wanted to do the 24 hours once to see how the car is behaving in the 24 hours, and the target is to do the entire 24 hours next season.
Great news. Good luck. Well met, sir.
Meantime, the black number 49 Audi, this is the DriveX car that is on pole position for tomorrow's race, is out and circulating, and at the moment sits in 10th position in class. Has at the moment Dominic Vicente, the Hungarian driver, one of two. Not sure whether that's brothers or father and son in there. Zoltan and Dominic, along with Juan Cruz Alvarez and English driver William Paul, or English and Spanish, and of course Heino Bo Fredriksson is the 5th driver in that car. 5 is the maximum you can have in this poll.
Yes, 5 drivers is the maximum, 2 is the minimum. If you have, however many you have, it doesn't actually matter. You can drive in 2 different cars, and people like Evo and Troikas are entered in 2 cars. Whether they'll actually end up driving them in the race, I think we'll find out later on. But the regulations permit you to drive 2 different cars. 2 hours is the maximum driving time. And you have to have 2/3 of your driving time. Then has to be a rest period before you get into a car again. Whether you're driving 1 or 2 cars, you always have to have a rest period of 2/3 of the length of the driving time that you've just done. The other thing which drivers have to be careful of, and this is particularly in the A6 classes, whether it's A6 AM or A6 Pro, is how they use their Pro, Semi-Pro and AM drivers. Now, broadly speaking, the way that Creventic do things is to have what they call AM, which is broadly equivalent to the FIA bronze category. They have semi-pro, which is broadly equivalent to silver, and then they have pro, which is everybody else, gold or platinum.
Yeah.
But what they don't do is to stick rigidly to the FIA categorisation. They can apply their own rules if they so choose, which is Creventic does with everything it does. But you are limited if you're in the pro category, the A6 Pro category. Your pro drivers can only drive for half of the race, so that means they can only drive for 12 hours, which means that your AMs have to do the other 12. Or in fact a little bit more than that. Because
So if you had 4 pros and 1 AM, you would have to have your 4 pros doing 12 hours, and even I can work out that's 3 apiece, and the AM would have to do the whole of the 12 hours himself.
Exactly.
Interspersed between them.
And still do his rest times.
His rest periods, yeah.
And a maximum driving time of 2 hours, and then having 2/3 of the... So you have to be rather careful.
Yes.
So
I see what you're getting at there, Mr. Trustwell.
So it depends really how your driver composition is, and of course the drivers will know or each team will know what their composition is. What I need is a full list that tells me, and then I can hopefully keep track of it and keep you abreast of it if somebody starts getting close.
Interesting news. Talking to the sports car world, we appreciate that, and although this is not from this series, Marshall Pruitt has just tipped me off as to something that he's posting on racer.com right now about a massive change in IMSA regulations at the moment. Porsche, who have been struggling this year with the GTLM car, are being allowed to go back to their 2015 tyre specification. That is very interesting. The agreement was that everybody would be using 2016 WEC tyres in IMSA, and we sort of got a handle on this story at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park over the weekend, with a throwaway comment from one of the GTD Daytona FIA GT3 car drivers, being Jörg Bergmeister, about tyres, and the tyre company over there, Michelin, very quick to come back with some information for us. Well, it's coming through from Marshall Pruitt, and read all about it on racer.com now. A change of tyres and minimum weight for Porsche as IMSA's attempt to balance the competition in a very difficult 2016 with effectively 2 different classes of cars in GTLM at the moment, the new cars and the old cars. Well, those trials and tribulations of the technical staff for IMSA continue with a rather unusual step there. Racer.com, you'll see it, and in fact I've just retweeted the link on @Specutainment, which is where you can get to us here in the broadcast centre, trackside. Try @Radio Le Mans, and Martin's on it @Martin Haven, all one word. Paul Trustwell is surprisingly @Paul Trustwell. Joe Bradley, who'll be on later on and sitting in the booth with us at the moment, is @Bradders3078. Bruce is, I think, @Bruce J.O. Racer.
Bruce Jones, or maybe he's Bruce Joe Racer,
Yeah.
Something like that. Can I apologise in advance for not replying to any tweets? But I find I get distracted if I start, so I don't even look at tweets until afterwards. But I do read them.
I've seen the fact that you read them. I have watched you read them, and you reply to a select few.
Yes, this is, what I can't be doing is getting involved in any discussions over Twitter. If you want to talk to me, then you send me an email. My email's not that hard to find.
Owen, are you on Twitter? You will be. Owen Mildenhall? Yeah.
He tweets.
Everybody's tweeting nowadays.
The fastest time we've had thus far has been set by the HTP Motorsport Mercedes, what I call the Vengeance. I'm going to call it the Vengeance car this weekend. Because of the way in which they lost the Nürburgring 24 hours on the last lap. They were leading the race.
Oh, yes.
They had a terrible. It wasn't a strategic call. They just got the distance of the race.
They were forced into a decision they didn't need to make.
Well, they didn't want to make. And they had to take on some more fuel. However, rather than beating their enemies, they've joined their enemies, and they've got Bernd Schneider from the Black Falcon team into their team.
Yes, very good.
So they've now got lucky talisman Black Falcon driver Bernd Schneider. I mean, he's not new to HTP because he's driven for HTP many times, but So Ben Schneider is driving the car, and I think quite strongly that HTP feel that they have a score to settle there. So I'm calling it the vengeance car. Okay, it has gone quicker in tonight's night practice than anybody went in the night practice last year. Now, bearing in mind that last year's pole time was quicker than this year's pole time.
That's significant.
It is significant that HTP have got a fast car.
What I don't know was how hot it was during the day during last year's qualifying.
No.
Because I can't say. I was surprised, actually. Tom Onslow Cole will be delighted that his 2 minutes 6.390 stood from last year. That was a surprise to me because we have a raft of new and improved GT3 cars here. Very little has changed in terms of the control tyre. It's the same people, it's Hankook. They've developed the tyres a little bit more for the new cars, so I hear. The balance of performance have taken into account the new cars. Now, interestingly, it was an older car that took pole position there, so maybe that is telling a story. But I was slightly surprised by that, if I'm honest, Paul. And
yeah, so was I. Yeah.
I'll be interested to have a look. None of us were here last year. We were all doing different things in different parts of the world, so not really sure why that came to pass.
Yeah, so it was the driver in question in the HTP Mercedes, Wim de Pundet, who's been at the wheel for the whole time it's been out. It's just had rather a long pit stop of about 7 or 8 minutes, but back on its way again. Second fastest, albeit 2.5 seconds slower, is Rolfin Eichen now at the wheel of the 963 Grasser Lamborghini. That's done a 2 minutes 11.678, and the third fastest is the Porsche, the Precoat Herbert Porsche that was involved in last year's battle for the lead, really, between him and Ram Racing, the 911 Porsche entered by Precoat Herbert, and that's done a 2 minutes 12.010.
Joe Osborne, you're smiling, but your Audi's sitting in the pit garage. Is there anything I should know about it?
No, honestly, we're just we're waiting for night to fall in night practice, basically, so it actually gets dark and we can do some setup on the lights and just putting a few sets of brakes in. We're not quite sure how many sets we're going to go through yet in the race, but we'd rather have too many than too few.
You seem to have a bit of a smile on your face. I thought you were putting rude messages on the pit board ready to send out to the driver when he goes out, which is going to be Edward Sandstrom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first weekend we've worked with Eddie, so trying to break him into our British humour as harshly as we can. So yeah, some strong expletives that we can fit on the board just to kind of bring his morale down, really.
Yeah, no, it's important. No one is bigger than the team. That's the mantra, isn't it? Anything particular about Paul Ricard you're finding with this car? Because obviously the temperature's not dissimilar to when you raced in Dubai in January.
Yeah, we're struggling with the rear a lot today, so I suppose we spent the whole day chasing rear setup, just really loose. I think a few guys have struggled. They might be tyre weights a bit stronger here than Dubai. Nothing out of the ordinary. We're fairly happy going into the race now anyway.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Joe.
It's interesting, isn't it? You take for granted, don't you, when you get into a car, that your headlights are going to work. In fact, we've got a Renault Clio coming out of the pit lane at the moment whose headlights aren't working. They've just gone off. The driver's flicked the switch the wrong way. A lot of people using these very bright white LED light bars in some very creative ways, not just hammered onto the top of the bonnet and secured with a couple of self-tappers, although that in fact is exactly how it's been done on the Clio, which has no light at the moment, who I'm still using as an example, and that is the 212 Clio, which is the one of the Presenza team Clios, Swiss entered teams, 46th in the standings at the moment, and he's got no lights on at all there. So he had lights on when he came down the pit lane.
Well, he hit the switch, didn't he, and turned them off.
Yeah, exactly right.
I suppose, strictly speaking, it's not yet half an hour after sunset, so
by the construction and use rate.
On the construction and use rate, you don't have to use your lights until. But he's being flashed as everybody,
just like you do on the road. Everybody's flashing him from behind, flashing the indicators, and quite oblivious to anything else. The Clio driver in the 212 is driving along without the headlights on. No, I was just thinking, you think to yourself, well, how hard can it be? You go out there, the headlights should be pointing in the right direction. But of course, these are race cars, not road cars, and they probably don't get used in the dark that often.
No, and pointing them in the right direction for the racetrack is a different matter from pointing them in the right direction for your road car as well, John. I've not driven a racing car in a race, and nor have I driven one at night. So I can't really speak from anything that I know, but people tell me that you want to have a light pointing out towards the apexes of the corner, so you can see where you're apexing. So rather than having the kind of lights pointing forwards, you tend to have at least one on either side pointing out with an angle quite extreme, probably about 45 degrees, in order to be able to light up the apex, so you can see where your turn-in, where your tipping point should be. And of course, the other thing that you need to get used to is the fact that everybody else is driving around on full beam
all the time,
and isn't necessarily going to be dipping their lights for you. Although, actually, in Creventic races, it is actually slightly more polite with keeping your lights down. The regulations have been clarified, I should say, in terms of what lights you're allowed to carry. A maximum of 6 forward-facing lights are allowed by the regulations, but the LED lights are allowed and are encouraged. But they are to be, and I've forgotten the exact number of square centimetres, but there is a certain number of square centimetres.
It's an area. Because that only counts as one light, of course.
Because that is only then one light, a bit like the...
Oh, that's a full lap by the Clio with no lights on now. As he comes past us again. I drove at Anglesey in David Smith's MG, the Rover MG, with a light bar on the front, and it was extraordinary how much difference it made. I didn't believe how much difference it would make, and was a bit sceptical about it. Thought, I'll just put the main beam on. I'll flick these on to see what it's like. Oh my goodness, excellent. You could really see everything. And since then, in fact, I have invested, thanks to Martin Short at Roll Centre, in a set of Clearwater LED lights for my motorcycle for 2 reasons. One, so I can see better in the dark, and 2, because you can set them at different levels for daytime and night time, because my BMW K1600 is cleverer than I am. Then they work very well as day notice lights as well. And bit of a slide coming in from the Mazda into the back chicane. Again, that car is another one that is a little bit skittish around the back end. I'm very impressed with them, and of course the LED side of it is such that they are very bright. You can focus them where you want them, but they take very little current drain.
That's crucial, isn't it? Because there's so much draining the electricity of these cars, and again, racing cars tend not to have the best wiring looms in the world for some reason, and they tend to get shaken around a little bit more than your average road car, so they tend to fall apart a little bit more easily. So yes, anything that drains the battery, or that can be limited in the amount that it drains the battery, is a good thing. 20 centimetres at the discretion of scrutineering is the size of your LED unit, and that will then be considered as one headlight. The other allowance which has been made for the LED headlights is that you can put those in the bumper.
Yes, and a lot of people have, very neat and tidy. PrepTech have done that, no trailing wires, beautiful.
Exactly, and normally though you're not allowed to make any holes in your bumper as part of the regulations, but for the purposes of fitting LED lamps, then you are allowed to put holes in the bumper. But as I say, the limit is that only 6 forward-facing lights are allowed.
What amazes me always is when we see the onboard cameras, which you could be watching on 24hseries.com or radiolemans.com at the moment, is just how much brighter it is from the onboards than it is actually outside. The camera technology nowadays with HD, even on the onboards, it is quite extraordinary. It won't be long before in fact, we've already been messing about in WEC with 4K onboard cameras, which means you don't have to have a moving camera. You just basically set it very wide and you can pick the part of the picture that you want, which is all very, very clever technology. I watched a demonstration of a basketball game being filmed effectively with a single camera. And you set the camera out wide and you can zoom into the part that you want by just touching the screen. And the quality doesn't diminish at all. Very, very clever. Very, very. No good if you're a camera operator. Although I suppose then you end up standing beside a screen rather than standing on a camera, so it probably means you can do most of your work indoors rather than outdoors. But I think most of the camera operators I know treat that as an art and would far rather be out on the action rather than behind a TV screen.
It's like a lot of things these days, isn't it, John, where the art is being taken away by the technology. But having said that, the technology is pretty impressive at what it can do these days. And I'm astonished by this second screen that you've got, which has got a split screen, which turns what would be one television screen into 10, I think it is, 10 different views you've got there.
I mean, most TV trucks now have, and that's software doing that, of course, because that's all of those pictures are coming down one wire to the screen, and basically this started off when TV trucks started to go digital, and you'd have bigger and bigger panels, but you would still want, in the old days it was all cathode ray screens, almost inevitably. Well, within my lifetime,
I was going to say,
so very old days, inevitably Sony monitors, high quality Sony monitors of various sizes, and you would have one picture on one screen, and as panel technology and the technology to process pictures without a loss of quality, HD pictures in particular, came along. Basically, you can now set up your screens in the truck on the wall, however many you've got, to be either full screen, part screen, or as we've got here now, we have got 10 pictures, 8 small screens and 2 larger ones, all built onto one screen, and that will be replicated in our production area, which is 4 boxes further down, which the guys are cutting the pictures from what they're seeing.
I was taken by Motorsport magazine, as I pronounce, who, against my better judgment, featured a James Garner picture on its front cover, who wasn't a proper racing driver.
Playing a bad driver?
No, I'm not saying that he wasn't a bad driver. But
I know what you mean.
In the role of Pete Aaron on the front cover of Motorsport wasn't quite right. Anyway, everything else about Motorsport is right. And they had a review, I don't know if you've read it, of the making of Grand Prix, the movie, which frighteningly was 50 years ago.
Do you know, I watched it on a Virgin Atlantic flight that I took recently. It was the only thing that I wanted to watch, and I sat and watched it start to finish again and thought it was outstanding.
It's a lot of outstanding things in it. Whether it's an outstanding film is another matter for a debate we can have some other time.
Technically, it's
However,
outstanding.
The reason that I'm talking about it is because of split screens, because that was one of the very early Hollywood movies to feature split screens.
John Frankenheimer.
And Frankenheimer, it was his first colour film that Frankenheimer had ever made, which I hadn't realised until Motorsport magazine mentioned it in its recent review. But he said he wanted to use split screens because it conveyed the action of motorsport where you never quite know where to look. There's always something going on somewhere else that you can't see, and there's always 2 things happening in front of you that you're not quite sure which one to look at. And by producing the split screen, Frankenheimer was reflecting that aspect of motorsport.
Have you ever seen it on a cinema screen?
Yeah, that was the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was old enough to see it, and my dad had his sleeve very firmly tugged in order to take me.
If you ever get the chance, I mean, it's been remastered on Blu-ray, DVD now, as has Steve McQueen's Le Mans. If you ever get a chance to see Grand Prix on the big screen, it's a very long movie. It's only 3 hours, I think, and it is worth going to see it because it is a completely different experience. Of many films of that era were, if you ever get the chance, for example, to go and see Get Carter on the big screen, same thing. It was shot to be seen and to envelop you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I mean, it was the version that I have on a DVD starts with an entr'acte. You just have some music at the beginning, and then you have to switch DVDs halfway through the film.
Yes, that's right.
And there's an intermission when you go down and queue up for your ice cream. It's very much.
Which you do at home as well, apparently. Nip out to the freezer.
Don't have to queue up for it at our house.
Okay, excellent.
But it's not most of the time. Anyway, so there we are. We've not had any improvements in time, so I needn't tell you about that. But what I would just say quickly is that the HTP Mercedes, which is supposed to be cycling through all of its drivers, thus far has only had Wim de Punde behind the wheel of it. The 963 Lamborghini, which is second fastest, has thus far only had Adrian Amstutz behind the wheel of it, although Rolf Ineinken has been out now, just gone out. And in the number 11... Ferrari, I've only had No, that is interesting because I've got Cryle. Yes, Cryle is just going out for his first lap. Matteo Manicelli has done all of the driving thus far. So most of the teams, although they only have to do 2 laps, have been doing a lot more than that, getting the cars set up in the early part of this night qualifying session.
Now, Rick Breukers, you're in cars 203 and car 303. You qualified both cars, Rick, and I believe it went very well.
Yeah, it went very well. I did first was qualifying in the TCR. I got new tires and yeah, we got a good lap. I think the car is perfect for the circuit and I really enjoyed it. And we have P1 in class, so very happy.
And Rick, we spoke to you earlier. There's some decision going to be made as to whether you're going to run the Seat or the V8 Mazda. Has that decision been made yet?
Yeah, at the moment we don't have any drivers for the Seat, Elsa, my dad and me. So we will probably drive in the Mazda only, but we will see after the night practice.
So tell us a little bit about the car you're going to race.
The Mazda? Yeah, it is a great car, has a lot of horsepower. It's very aggressive. It has not the best grip in the corners, but on the straight it's really fast. It's a really fun car to drive.
Now, just for people who are watching or listening at home, it may look like a Mazda, but it's not quite a Mazda underneath that. It's a proper space frame race car, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. It's very fast, and of course it's designed for 24-hour races, and it sure is a proper race car.
And Rick, it looks quite a handful out there. I would imagine you have to be very attentive to it. For instance, the back end on the throttle, it looks like it's very, very twitchy.
Yeah, it's very aggressive on the throttle. You have to really be careful and use the traction control. You got a lot of oversteer, but if you handle it well, you keep the tires good, and yeah, it's a nice car.
And it's got more power than the Seat, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot more power than the Seat.
We like power.
Yeah, me too.
Look at the smile on Rick's face. Thanks, Rick. Best of luck for tomorrow's race.
Rick Breukers with Joe Bradley down in the pit lane, which means we are already through more than half an hour. In fact, coming on to 42 minutes of this session. So we're almost at the halfway point. Just look at some of the other leaders in class in this session, not necessarily having qualified here. Remember, qualifying took place earlier on today, and the grid therefore is set. A different leader of Group A2 than we've seen for a wee while. It has been, for the most part of today, the Christensen Team Kaiser Peugeot RCZ. It is now the number 112 Team Presenza Renault Clio. They lead the A2 class, 2:35.5 for those guys. In A3, it is Team Altran Peugeot, as it seems to have been all day. It's the 208 car.
Matteo Santis, the driver of the fastest lap in that car.
2:26.0. In the TCR class, it is, as it has been pretty much all day, the Seat Leon of the Memak Ogilvy, the champions from last year. They are in 30th position, 2:21.0.
And Phil Quaife was the driver who set that time in 2:21.
And first in SP3 is the 231 Porsche, 2:21.2.
Kevin Gleeson, the driver of that car, OCC Lassic Racing with Newbridge Motorsport, entered Cayman.
They took up the most printer ink of anyone here. RWT Racing and their Chevy Corvette is leading SP2 in 19th position overall this evening at 2:18.4.
By Sven Barth.
In A6 AM, 2:13.4 by the IDEX Sport Mercedes, the 17 car in 10th position. And
that was Paul Lafargue.
Thank you. And SPX is Spark Motorsport, the 94 car, 9th position, 2:12.517.
By Jules Gounon.
Gounon is in the car at the moment. So those are your leaders. At the top of the charts is the HTP Motorsport AMG GT with a 2:09.277. Joe Bradley is going to tell us a story of, well, plastic paddling pools. And when he's done with that, it will be Martin Haven to take you through to the close.
Well, the Radio Le Mans team speculated over dinner as to why all the teams had a paddling pool. Well, we speculated that the crazy Creventic organisers may have allocated a paddling pool to all the teams. And guess what? That's exactly what they've done. Crazy Dutch, huh? It is hot, though.
It's not hot any longer, Joe Bradley, but those will definitely come in handy during tomorrow and on Sunday. So continuing with our coverage of night-time practice, although, frankly, it's still blue light. Well, just about blue light, that light that photographers love, and cinematographers love as well, because it makes everything stand out really vibrantly. As you can see from the onboard, Rob Nern currently in the 202 Red Camel Jordan's Seat, showing you that there is still quite a lot of light in the sky if you're heading in the right direction, i.e. east down the main straight. However, on the Mistral, not quite so much. Martin Haven, Paul Truswell and Joe Bradley down patrolling the pits as we continue to cycle through all our drivers, and cars also, as well as having lights on the front being checked out, lights on the side are being checked out as well. Illuminated night running number panels, as well as the position indicators on the side of the cars, are all being checked by the technical team here at Creventic, who are running this weekend's 24-hour series race. So you'll see in the rear window of all the cars, or attached to the rear window, are the little LED displays that tell you what position in the running order the car is. You just saw Peter May leaving the APO Sport garage in the 68 Porsche. I can tell you that without even looking at the number on the side, because the rear window told me it was in 21st place. And in 21st place is Peter May in the APO Sport Porsche. So that's one of our 991 class cars. In fact, that is second in the 991 class. And fastest is Jerry Foster in the MRS GT Racing Porsche in that 991 class. On board pictures again, courtesy of Peugeot Team Altran. And these two cars dominating their class. That's the A3 category, which basically would be the Alton Park Hot Hatch Championship in about a decade. These two cars very much the pace of that class. And Peugeot also, that's A2, Peugeot also dominating the A3 class, which is the sort of tiddlers with the RCZ as well, which is, Paul, only one car, but somewhere ahead of the Renault Clio contingent.
Well, not at the moment.
Well, it was on pace in qualifying.
It was in qualifying, absolutely right. But in this, it's now changed again, because Jakob Christensen is now behind the wheel and has gone quicker. But he has only just taken over the A2 class lead. So yes, you are right, but you were only just right. So well done. Staying on.
Only just is a get in. That's a victory.
Absolutely, no. Credit where it's due. Well,
credit for my guesswork.
The other thing, just to bring listeners up to date, because kind of in the changeover, Matteo Malicelli in the Scuderia Praha Ferrari set a better time for that car. And in fact, I've got a feeling, I'm not quite sure if it was Matteo Malicelli or whether it wasn't Josef Kral. Anyway, the car has done a 2 minutes 9.879. Malicelli having started the car and handing it over to Josef Kral. A 2 minutes 9.879 then. So there are three cars now then. The 41 HTP Mercedes fastest, the 963 Grasser Racing Lamborghini, which now has Jeroen Blekemolen driving it. He's second fastest with a 2.9.698. That gap has come down quite significantly. And then the Ferrari is third fastest at 2 minutes 9.879. Everyone else very nearly 2 seconds behind, although Alex Muller in the SPS Automotive Mercedes has just set his fastest time, the car's fastest time of the evening, at 2:11.200. So that's top four at the moment, with the Mercedes sandwiching a Lamborghini and Ferrari in the top four places.
No Porsches at the top of that pile. Fastest Porsche is 7th place. That's Ralph Bohn in the Precoat Herbert Motorsport 911, car number 911. But we were talking Porsches in class 991, and Joe Bradley is down at MSG Motorsport. Their number 62 car lies third in the 991 class. Joe, what are they making of nighttime practice?
Oh, it's bigger than that. Sam Tahiri out of the 62 Porsche. Did very well in qualifying, but you've had your troubles today, haven't you, Sam?
Yeah, well, we didn't do well to qualifying. We couldn't get to qualifying because we did one lap, and we just the lap that we don't have to start from the pit lane. But in the exit of qualifying, we had a broken gearbox. The differential, something wrong with the shell, and it broke it out a lot of oil. We had a spare car. We picked up the gearbox from that one and stick it in the car, and it's fine. It's going out well. I just came out quick, and I'm happy with it. Yeah.
So thankfully, the team had a spare Porsche just lying there, and you've taken the gearbox out of that one. And is that the broken one that we see on the stand there?
They're opening it up, see if they can fix it, and maybe we keep it as a spare. They put it back in the car. We have a full spare car, so in case something happens, we can use the second car.
Right, and of course the regulations allow you to change gearboxes.
So yes, yeah. Well, changing the gearbox is fine, but
no, I mean, sorry, Sam. I mean in the race. If you do need that gearbox now, it's going to be in the race.
Correct. Yes. For now the car is fine, going well. It's a bit. I think it's a bit slower. I feel it's slower. But in the morning, yeah, we have a good driver lineup. We're quick. We have good high hopes. Let's see how it goes. We can make up for the crash in Zandvoort. We had a bad luck in there, but no, it's good to be more.
You're no stranger to endurance racing, Sam. Endurance racing is all about just going round and round. Doesn't necessarily have to be the quickest.
Not really. We have to keep our nose clean. That's all it is. We'll see if we keep our pace together. We push it as hard as necessarily we can, and then see how it goes. We probably can do something with this race. Yeah.
Have you already been out in night practice?
Yeah, I just came out. Nico Rinsbacher went back in. He learned his lessons now. He's got his experience. He did a few races with the Cayman GT4 in European tracks, few podiums. Now he's getting there. His mentality has changed now. He knows the endurance race is not about kicking lap times now. It's good. It's going well. Yeah.
And hopefully, Sam, fingers crossed, that's all of your bad luck gone for the week.
As you said, yeah, the jinx is gone now. All the bad luck is gone. I hope tomorrow we got a clean race and good well. Thank you very much.
Great stuff, Sam. Cheers.
So that 62 car, thank you, Joe, and thanks to Sam. It is a Franco-Argentine, Iranian-Swiss driver lineup. So Sam now races under an Emirates license, but originally Iranian or Persian. Nico, as he said, Nico Rindlisbacher from Switzerland, Jose Manuel Babiani from Argentina, and Remy Terrell from France, who races with a Swiss license, so probably from the Geneva area, you would think. And that car third in the 991 class, and Bullet Dodge. I think that the spare car they're talking about is the all-white car out the back, which has got number 37 on it, and I wondered what it was doing there. And it is probably being
sacrificed.
Yes, because there's nothing in the spectator car park that will produce the right parts. Teams are being reminded by race control not to use high beam in the pit lane, because that dazzles everybody, and then nobody's got any night vision, which would not really help too much. 37 minutes remain in this 90-minute nighttime practice session. Still a lot of light in the sky. I think when we go to the Brno 24 hours, there is likely to be less clear sky. I know in terms of sunrise and sun up, it might not be quite as long a dark night as Daytona, but I think it's going to be colder and probably and Brno will be pitch black. Daytona at least is lit.
Yes,
Brno is not.
No, I was saying to John earlier on, I think it's a great idea to extend it to the 24-hour distance. But I mean, as I said at the time, you know, there are other things which need to be taken into account when extending it. Not least the fact that you need to double the number of marshals, because you can't expect a marshal to stand on post for 24 hours.
No, or indeed 12.
Well, if you're going to cycle them for 12, do you just cycle them twice for 24, or do you need to have some extra marshals along there?
You would think you'd need at least another third. I mean, we're now talking about we probably need at least another one, if possibly maybe even two more people from a team of four. So it becomes a whole different kettle of fish when you double the amount of work involved. Really does.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if that's what the competitors have asked for, I'm sure that they'll be contributing to the additional effort as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's 24hseries.com. It's a series of races around the 24-hour distance, even though we have the rather strange endurance races at Zandvoort or Mugello, which are kind of 12 hours, but 2 bits added together in order to make that into a 12-hour situation. But it adds, each circuit adds its own character to the series, and I think what Preventic is doing, I've said it before, is bringing on interest in this sport, and it's teaching people what to do in getting the cars to the finish.
Exactly right, and Brno is the sort of racetrack that almost nobody can get enough of. It's just such an undulating challenge. I mean, this is a very different kind of track. It doesn't have the elevation changes that Brno does, but it certainly has a whole load of different challenges with the really quick stuff. And then, as we can see, if you're following the streaming either on the 24hseries.com or on radiolemans.com, and if you're listening to us, you must be listening to us on radiolemans.com. Just click on the streaming as well if you're somewhere where you can safely. Obviously, ask an adult's permission. But you can see there are some really twisty technical parts, and somewhere basically you need the chin strap and all the belts done up really quite tight as well, because it's big cojones time. 45th overall, we ride on board with the 555 car, Team Africa Le Mans. This is a 2.7 litre V6 engine Ginetta G55, essentially a GT4 spec car, lightweight bodied and purpose-built just for racing. Although Ginetta did briefly make a variant of the G50, a G55 family as a road car. It was really, as briefly an experiment. Their ethos, their entire business is building cars for customers to race, and very effective they have provided as well, have proven as well. And that 555 car in the hands of a couple of very experienced drivers. Cyril van der Merwe, South African driver who raced extensively across the globe in the Group C era, and another man who did exactly that as well, Jan Lammers, of course, even more famously the Le Mans winner with Jaguar, and Jaguar returning to the winner's circle at Le Mans for the first time in how many years was that, back in 1988? I forget that.
The time before they won was in 58.
Yes.
So, yes.
30 years.
I would say, the Vortex has just put in, I say just put in, it's in the pits now. This is car number 209, second now in the SPX class. It's put in a 2 minutes 12.630 before it went round, came back into the pits, and that is 2 seconds faster than it went in qualifying. So quite whether it was suffering problems in qualifying or not, I don't know, but certainly this V8 General Motors engined car, originated being a GC Automobiles car, and now had various aerodynamic changes made to it. But as I say, that time that it's just done of 2 minutes 12.6 faster than it went during the qualifying session. So things going nicely for that car.
Vortex 1.0 makes it sound like it's got a very small capacity engine. However, it doesn't. That's more your software release 1.0, isn't it? That's what they're thinking of. So yeah, what is actually still on the entry list, it's called a GC10, isn't it? But a 6.2 V8. Not sure exactly what that is in cubic inches or where its GM heritage comes from, because is the Corvette a 6.2 V8?
It's an LS3 engine, which is a part of the GM family.
Yes.
And as I say, it certainly seems to be going nicely now that night has fallen, being driven by Alexandre Coigny, who I think we heard from earlier on. One of our pit lane commentators spoke to him, and the time was actually set by David Iraj Alexander, who's no stranger to long distance racing. I'm pretty sure he's done Dubai 24-hour races in the past. Tom Dyer and Gino Forgione.
Now, I've never heard Iraj Alexander called David Iraj Alexander before. When I've commentated on before, he's always been Iraj Alexander, so that's a new one on me.
Okay, I'm just going by what's on the entry list.
No, exactly, and it's not on any of the entry lists what I have created from the entry lists that were on the website earlier in the week. So, yes, entertaining there.
Let's worry about that later.
Porsche in the pit lane. Now, who has Patisserie Valerie? Who do they sponsor as well? It's another. I'm very tempted to say it's Sebastian Loeb Racing Porsches, but I can't quite confirm. Maybe they were in British GT. No,
you'll have noticed it presumably instantly when you saw the logo.
Yeah, and it rang all sorts of bells. Code 60, Joe.
And that is because car number 203, the Vortex, having been talking about it, we've cursed it, has stopped out on the circuit.
No,
so
that's
we've got a code
203
60.
is not the Vortex. 209 is that. Oh no, that's the other Vortex, which is the GC10.
Guys, I've got Paul May.
Okay, well, Joe Bradley, your microphone is up, so if you have Paul, let's hear from him.
Yeah, answer to your question, Martin. The Patisserie Valerie livery, I'm sure, was on that Evan Muller's LMP3 team at Le Mans. I might be wrong. Paul May, you've just gotten out of the Valerie Patisserie Porsche, the number 68 car. Night practice, you've got the most romantic stint. Look at that sundown.
It's a beautiful evening, isn't it? A bit warm in the car, but great fun out there. First time on the track, but very enjoyable.
Tonight was your first time out?
First time on this track, and obviously the first night session as well. So it's enjoyable, very good.
So you've had to learn the circuit kind of in the semi-dark?
Well, and I did my testing today as well. So I've done a daytime session as well. So this is my first one in the dark here. So but very good, good fun.
Liking the track, I take it?
I'm loving it. Yeah, great fun, and I mean it's quite a difficult technical circuit to learn, but I think I'm looking forward to the 24-hour race.
I noticed, Paul, we walk around the track today. There's lots of this circuit where you can really lose bags of time. It kind of sort of lulls you into a sense of security sometimes, and it can really slow you down by being in the wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, very much so. There's 2 or 3 sections. If you don't get the approach in the right gear, you will lose tremendous amount of time. That's particularly before the straights, and it's taken me some time to pick that up. Fortunately, I've got 2 young drivers, so they give me a few tips, so that's quite helpful.
Now, the 991 Club class is arguably the most competitive class in this series. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, this is a fairly new car for us. The Zandvoort was our first outing, and we would have won our class, except a driver went over his allotted time by about 30 seconds. So we're optimistic for this weekend. So we're hoping to get a good result. Certainly, it's aiming for a top 3 in class.
Excellent stuff. Can you tell us anything about the Valerie Patisserie livery on the car?
Yes, I'm the CEO of it, so it's my business. And the last event, I was asked to bring some cakes, but I don't think they've been very healthy if I brought them over.
I think that was me.
Oh, was it you? Yeah. We'll try and bring some next time.
Am I right? Did I see that livery on Evan Muller's team?
No, it wouldn't be on there. I mean, I wouldn't mind if he wants to give me some money towards it. I'd be very happy.
You know what? I think it's probably Zandvoort where we saw it. That's how old we are.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, but it's quite attractive, isn't it? It's different as well. So
yeah, very much so. I'm still going to push on the cakes, though.
I'll try and bring you one. I promise.
Okay. Next race.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul. Best of luck, mate. All the best. Thank you.
Hashtag cake for mentions. No cake, no mentions. Especially if you own a patisserie. There's absolutely no getting out of this at all. So code 60, again from the onboard cameras, you can see the drivers are behaving very sensibly. And for those of you who are new to this form of racing or haven't seen a code 60 in use before, essentially the deal is it neutralizes the entire race, freezes it in aspic if you like, because everybody drives around with their thumb on the limiter button at 60 kilometers an hour. So the gap to the car in front remains the same, the gap to the car behind remains the same, nobody gains, nobody loses, and Paul Paul Trustwell, it allows marshals to work without having to use safety cars or red flags.
Yes, and I mean the beauty of it is as well is it is instant. The moment the code 60 is shown, the moment the purple flag is put out, everybody slows down to 60 kilometres an hour. So you don't need to wait for cars to come around across the start-finish line. You don't need to wait for them to line up behind the safety car. So it happens instantly. So if you want to get a marshal to a place rapidly, this is the most efficient way of doing it. It's not quite as simple as just pushing a finger onto a button, though. The problem is it's a code 60. Obviously, yes, that brings the speed down to 60 kilometres per hour. Do you know what the speed lane in the pit lane is? 40 kilometres an hour. Yeah. Except if you're in the fueling area, then it's 20 kilometres an hour. Yeah. So you need to have 3 buttons on the steering wheel if you're going to do it in that way. So a lot of them will be doing it based on, oh, it's 4,000 revs in third and I'll just set myself there.
That's horrible, though, because you know the chances of it creeping up are going to be really quite high.
And you know the penalties of doing it wrong are also quite high.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
It's one of those areas where, yes, there will be teams that have 3 separate buttons, one for the pit lane, one for the code 60 and one for the fueling area, but there were others who won't quite have the funding or technology available to them to do that.
Now, of course, what it also does is exactly what we're seeing now, is it keeps the pit lane live, so you can come in, you can change your drivers, you can take on fuel if you need to. You're not allowed to use it like you might do with a safety car in other forms of racing as a chance to fill up, but you can take up to half your normal fuel allocation, and that gets away from drivers having to come into a closed pit lane because they're in danger of running out of fuel and all the arguing and the protest and counter-protest and come and see us and all that stuff. You can come in, there's no question about it, and again, that's all part of the regulations here, designed to make racing as simple, as straightforward, as an enjoyable an event as possible. And again, is it because there is a car stranded out on track, or is this a nighttime rehearsal of Code 60? Because again, we've seen an ambulance go out of the pit lane, as we did in free practice earlier on, and that again maybe just to get everybody, track workers and so on, who at Paul RICARD here have only done this once before, get them rehearsed again and up to speed, and make sure that they're au fait with everything, and all the radio commands work and all that stuff.
Yeah, there will be a bit of that, I'm sure, going on. That ambulance to me looks like it's doing more than 60 kilometres an hour.
Yes, it is. And the course cars that were out earlier were notably driving past the cars doing. And again, that's another good thing, is that if there's a long safety car train, trying to get a vehicle past that is the devil's own job. But if they're individual cars spaced out, then the most you're likely to ever have to pass is 2 of them, and they're only doing 35, 40 miles an hour, so you can get by them easily.
Yes, the as Martin was saying, the refueling is limited whilst you're in a code 60, to the extent that he described. You're only allowed to put 50% of your normal allowance in. There's nothing to stop you then coming in the next time around and putting the other 50% in, although the chances of you actually needing 100% at any particular time isn't that great. It does work. It can work, I should say. It can work in your favour. It can work against you. Depends a little bit how long the Code 60 period lasts for. It can, if it catches you out for 3/4 of a lap and you don't even get the chance to come into the pits, and your nearest competitor was just in front of the pit lane and has come into the pits and got his fuel, then that's just the way the cookie crumbles. It's the luck of the draw. The idea is that over the course of the race, where your particular car is when the Code 60 happens, will even itself out.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, the problem is to know, how many Code 60s are we going to have through the race, and when are you going to be able to use them? I was doing a bit of research on this, and last year we actually had 8 periods of Code 60. And for quite a long time as well. In all, they added up to an hour and a half of being behind, or I say behind the safety car, being under neutralised conditions, I think is the word that the race director likes to use for it.
Now, our onboard camera, for those of you watching the stream, is in the number 208, Team Altran Peugeot 208. And that showed that on the exit of Signes, there appeared to be an M3 BMW parked side-on a long ways with the barriers and with a black hole where the right-hand side or passenger therefore door should have been. And it seemed to be another couple of vehicles there, and the ambulance went up there. So I'm now questioning whether this is entirely a dress rehearsal or whether, in fact, the workers at the scene said, "Do you know what? I think we might just get the ambulance out here for the driver of this car." Now, my memory tells me there are only 2 M3s in the field, and those are the 2 JR Motorsport E90s, aren't they? So 103 currently shown as not in the pit lane or on an outlap, and the driver of that 103 would be Mark van der Aar, and the 102, is that on the first page of your timing screen, Paul? I don't see where that is. I found 103. Oh, 102 below it has just left the pit lane, so it's not 102. So that's an outlap for Christoph Ulrich in 102. So if Joe Bradley came down below us, I can see 102 in fact has not left the pit lane. No, P rather than O. Martin, you idiot. P means it's in the pits, O means it's just gone out. So 102 is below us, and that's where JR Motorsport is. And in lieu of Joe, John's just left the back of the booth, so I can't send him down either. They're not going anywhere with 102, but they might be able to answer questions about whether 103 is that. Can you think of another M3 shaped?
No.
No, so it's either that or a 235i, which would look the same at a distance.
The
let's
longest period of Code 60 last year, incidentally, was, I had it a minute ago, I lost it again, 13 minutes.
Okay.
So 13 minutes, and we've been under Code 60 already now for just over 10.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I think we can go down to Owen Mildenhall in the pit lane. So Owen.
Hi there, yep, I'm here with Mark Bassang. Now Mark, you're hugely experienced in the RA, but can you tell us a little bit about the particular challenges of Paul Ricard in the dark?
Yeah, Paul Ricard is quite difficult in the dark because this track is like a big parking lot. You have more or less just the lines which mark the track. So sometimes it's not so easy to find the braking point, the turn-in point. I mean, I know the track quite well because we do a lot of the endurance runs here in Paul Ricard, day and night, 24-hour runs. But with my teammates, which are mostly amateurs, they are really struggling a little bit with the track. So it's good to use the night practice now to be prepared for tomorrow.
And I suppose in this situation, with your experience, part of your job in this car is helping your co-drivers, presumably.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that is my understanding from it. I'm the pro driver coming from the factory, and I'm just here just to support these guys, helping them with data, with video analysis, everything like this, that they have a enjoyable weekend. And in the end, we will see where we end up. If we can finish on the podium, it's like a victory for us, and we want that our customers are satisfied after a weekend like this.
Fantastic. And it sounds like a crazy question, but have you lost count of how many hours you've done in an R8 GT3 car in your career with Audi?
Oh, I have no idea, but it's thousands of hours. I'm quite sure. I'm driving since 2009 for Audi, and mainly long distance races and sprint and all this endurance tests we did with the car, especially with the new car. I mean, that's the reason why the car was from the first 24-hour race quite bulletproof. And that is just because the job before was done really hardly with a lot of effort. And I'm happy to be here. And it's good to race now more in Paul Ricard, not only testing. So I hope for a good race.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark, and let's hope you add to that hour tally this weekend.
Thank you.
Always good to see Mark Bassang. Lots of information you get from him. He's a really nice, chatty bloke. One of the 2 Car Collection Motorsport teams features him. He's with Oliver Bender, Alexander Matschul, Peter Schmidt and Horst Felbermeyer Jr., who has got a lot of racing experience. And that's why that car's got the Felbermeyer colours on it. The other car, Dr. Johannes Kirchhoff, Gustav Edelhoff, Max Edelhoff, Ingo Fergler and Elmar Grimm. Paul, why do I know Elmar Grimm's name off the top of my head? Does he go back a long way? Am I thinking FIA GT Championship and so on?
He's done this kind of thing before, and I'll have to look him up, I'm afraid.
Yeah, all right, not to worry. We have, while you do that, we have gone green once more. So Owen was a long way away because Car Collection are way up at the expensive end of the pit lane, and we are down over the cheap seats, which is where JR Motorsport is. Now, JR have sent out their other BMW, but Mark van der Aar was shown as being in Sector 3 and is still being shown as in Sector 3, so I should keep a little eye on that and see whether it moves across the line at any stage. His last lap was a 5-minute 39.1. But we did see the ambulance going over to there on the exit of Senior. Let's have a look as we turn in here, all clear. So that's on the exit of Senior. And Artem Solofyev in the number 73 HRT Porsche, and Artem in that car, that's currently 22nd overall and 4th in the 991 class.
Elmar Grimm, Martin, put you and everyone else out of their misery, has done the last 5 Nürburgring 24-hour races on the Nordschleife in a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car with Dr. Johannes Kirchhoff. So
that'll be
regular, competitor with him, although funny enough he hasn't done it for the last 2 years, but he has done the Nürburgring 24 hours between 2010 and 2014. Before that he did the FIA GT Championship in a Vita Racing Ferrari 550 Maranello, did 2 of the 10 races in the FIA GT series in 2003.
It's just a name that rang a bell. I couldn't think quite why it was.
Yes, as far as I know, it's nothing to do with the family of fairy tale tellers.
No. Mind you, possibly quite a profitable family to be in. New fastest lap for Anton Soloviev, who we were just riding on board with. That car has gone quicker. So too is the car that's chasing it up the leaderboard in 23rd place, which is the 84 Speed Lover Porsche. Now that's another 991 car, but it's not in the 991 class, that's in the SP2 class, because although they try and keep things as simple as humanly possible and avoid confusion, that car is effectively being driven too fast for the 991 class and has been promoted into SP2. Would that be a fair summation of the way it works? In fact, it was always entered as an SP2 car, because the driver lineup has proved to be quicker than a 991 Cup car would normally go. Currently, Mark Wallenwein from Germany is at the wheel, and he shares with Luxembourg's Carlos Rivas and Frenchman Philippe Richard and Belgian Pierre-Yves Pack. You see the 3rd place car in the field. That's Josef Kral on an outlap in the Scuderia Praha Ferrari 458. The driver from the Czech Republic started his career in single-seaters, raced up to GP2, and that's where the money and the windows of opportunity ran out, I'm afraid, for him as a single-seater race. But with so many young drivers, or as with so many young drivers, he's found a very welcoming group of sports car teams who are happy to have him ply his trade with them. Josef Kral, just relaxed, fast, and very convincing. And that driver lineup with he, Matteo Malucelli, Peter Cox and Yuri Pazeric, that is that's a podium contender anywhere it goes, isn't it?
I would put it at higher than a podium contender. I think they're probably aiming to be on the very top step, and provided the car keeps running, then it certainly is quick enough. And I think the point you've just made is absolutely right. Is that the quality of the AM drivers is what it's all about. And if you have, as I was saying to John, the regulations demand that the AM drivers drive more than 12 hours in the race. The pros have to limit themselves to doing less than 12, and depending on which class you're in. But it does mean if you've got a car like that Ferrari, which can be driven quickly by the pros, but if it can be driven quickly as well by the amateur drivers, then it's in with a very good chance indeed.
Now that's in the A6 Pro class, so how many amateurs do you have to have in an A6 Pro car? Any or none?
You can have either 1 or 2 pro drivers,
right?
And you can top them up. There's 3 classes in Preventic. There's pro, semi-pro, and AM. And in A6 Pro, you have a maximum of 2 pros and a minimum of 1 AM. apart from those
which
requirements,
of
you've got
Peter Cox, Josef Kral and Matteo Malucelli is not regarded as a pro? Matteo Malucelli?
Kral, I think.
What, an ex-GP2 driver is regarded as not a pro?
Let me just check
Wow.
that, because you're trying to get me onto a subject that I didn't want to talk about just
Yeah,
yet.
no, okay, fine.
I will check up on those.
Well, that's tonight's homework or tomorrow morning's.
Well, no, I can do that within 5 minutes. And,
no, I meant for
can
me.
I just tell you, because the bit I am trying to get to is that Juan Cruz Alvarez is the driver of the pole position sitting number 49 Audi, and that's going very rapidly at the moment and clawing its way up the timesheets. It was up to 5th when I first started wanting to tell you. Then it went up to 3rd, and now it's up to 2nd. So this isn't just a single lap from Cruz Alvarez. It's been a series of 4 laps, I think he's done at the wheel of the car, to tell you like 3 laps. So he did a 2:11.9, followed up by a 2:10.6, and now he's done a 2 minutes 9.6. So Juan Cruz Alvarez going very rapidly indeed in that Audi. And having told you that, I can now put down that piece of paper and I will tell you about the driver lineup in that Ferrari.
Well, that's a very strong set of laps on Juan Cruz Alvarez. And that number 49 DriveX Audi, again, I'm not quite sure who you're going to claim as a pro there, because none of the 5 names in that car would instantly spring out.
None of them are. You don't need to have a pro at all.
No. So that's, I mean, yeah, so if they can get themselves into a top 6 position with an all-AM lineup, that will be a stunning job. Well, adding a little bit more from the pits, Owen Mildenhall. Owen, what have you got? Oh, he's gone. Owen? I haven't faded up the right fader. No? Okay, well, he seems to have taken his headset off to catch up with somebody. He did, when he comes back to us, we'll bring you an Owen Mildenhall. So Juan Cruz Alvarez has gone 2nd fastest in the session, ahead of everybody. So ahead of world champion Jamie Campbell-Walter, ahead of Josef Kral, yes, GP2 driver, Juan Cruz Alvarez, beaten on pace in this session in the night only by the car that is currently being driven by Bernd Schneider, the number 41 HTP Mercedes. And although I couldn't bet on it, it certainly wasn't Schneider's last lap that set the time. His last lap was a 2:10.0. So Bernd Schneider in the fastest car and Juan Cruz Alvarez, who, in the 2nd fastest, with his ears back on and hopefully with his throat cleared as well. In the pit lane is Owen Mildenhall. Owen.
Three Cup have
Flappy paddle gearboxes. That another reason why nobody needs them, because they're hard to knock into neutral. Okay, so there's, you know, that's something that as a driver who happened to have seen it happen to someone else, and you immediately put in your head and desperately try not to end up burning with embarrassment and having done yourself. Okay, very good. All right, so that's the QSR 235i Racing Cup car, and their direct rivals in that A3 class in another 235i Racing Cup car is the Sorg Rennsport team, number 151. And actually, this was a dinner time conversation that we never got to. Paul's got an answer to my previous Ask Paul hashtag question. I have another Ask Paul hashtag question, but Paul, answer me your first one before I riddle you your next.
I will, but I'll tell you first of all then that we've got Bernd Schneider now at the wheel of the HT Motorsport Mercedes, and I don't know how quick Bernd's going to be at this stage because he doesn't really have to be, but the car is fastest in the nighttime session thanks to times set earlier on by Vinder Kundert, it was, who was doing all the driving earlier on, but Bernd Schneider now getting in to do his 2 night laps. The answer on...
Bernd has just come back in. He was in the car just a few minutes ago. In fact, his last flying lap was a 2:10.0, which would have left the car in 5th place anyway on the best laps of the session.
So Ed Schneider certainly hasn't lost any of his touch and will be pushing quite hard, I suspect. Great asset to any Mercedes team, just from the way he approaches things. Always involved, always getting everything out of everybody to push the team as hard as it will go. Anyway, that was the Mercedes moment. Let's get back to Scuderia Praha. So you've got Jiri Pesirak, Josef Kral, Matteo Malicelli and Peter Cox. Obviously, Malicelli and Cox are both pro drivers. Josef Kral is a semi-pro driver, and Jiri Pesirak is the AM driver.
Yeah.
Now, between them, therefore, Malicelli and Cox cannot drive more than 12 hours. So, equally, between them, Pesirak and Kral must do at least 12 hours between the two of them. How they split that doesn't matter, because the semi-pro is, in effect, kind of neither one nor the other. He can do whatever he wants.
So he's a joker card as opposed to an actual crown card or playing card. Okay, so between he and Jiri Pesirak, they have to do half the race and the other two have to do the other half, which would sort of what would happen if you're all paying equal amounts of the bills. But again, an XGP2 driver as a semi-pro, okay. Okay, my next riddle me riddle again was to do with surnames, and I'm going to have to come back to it because I've completely forgotten the name that I was looking at. Not to worry, we're just watching on our live streaming a little bit of hasty gaffer tape unwiring and rewiring going on. And this is the 62 Porsche. So this is the car that was brought in by Jose Manuel Barbero to MSG Motorsport, where Owen was earlier on, car number 62. And they've now moved up from 21st to 20th in the class, ahead of Alexander Osborne's number 68 APO sport car. And that was the car, again, that we were talking to the team just a few minutes ago. Well, down at JR Motorsport, we were saying that during the Code 60, it rather looked as though there was a BMW saloon off track at Senior, missing a right-hand side door, but a little bird in my ear has told me that the cars are both in the garage, parked up with no sign of damage. And indeed, Mark van der Aar has brought the car in and was shown as last driver in 103. Bob Herber's done 102. So if you can find a tall, not particularly clean-shaven Koen Bokaerts or somebody else to chat to, in fact, I think any of them will chat quite happy. We heard from Bob Herber earlier, and anybody down at JR, just to catch up with them, make sure that they're all happy with everything that's been going on. That would be great. Meanwhile, on board with the B2F car. Our fastest two cars, by the way, have both just come in and done driver changes. So Christoph Schmidt has gone out in the number 41 HTP Mercedes, which remains quickest. And in the 49 DriveX Audi, that is second fastest, it is Dominic Fekete. That's a stab. My regular Hungarian pronunciation correspondents will probably correct me on that at some stage. But down at JR Motorsport, Owen Mildenhall. So, Owen, who have you got?
Yeah, hi Martin. I'm down here with Bob Herber from number 102 BMW. Now, the car's in the garage, Bob. Have you obviously got a technical problem with the car?
Yeah, we lost one cylinder, so the car has a lack of power.
So is that an engine change for tomorrow, I presume?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, best of luck for tomorrow, and the guys look like they're going to start work on it straight away, so best of luck.
It will be a late one for them.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Owen, and Bob Herber with a smile on his face, but it is going to be a long night for JR Motorsport. They are well rehearsed at rebuilding BMWs. They run a number of them in various different championships throughout the season, but Paul, you know, we talk about the fatigue element for the drivers and so on, but certainly for the team, an all-nighter the night before a 24-hour race is hardly ideal, is it?
We talk about unsung heroes and how what a great job the marshals do, but the mechanics certainly volunteer, and many of them are unpaid, and they work enormously hard as well. there's a strange satisfaction that they get out of getting these things onto the road, though, and very often it's the drivers that have to call time on these things and say, you know, it's broken, let's not try and fix it. And the mechanics say, yeah, we can fix it, get out and drive it again. And it's the drivers that are pushing the let's go out and fix it, rather than it being necessarily the mechanics who are always willing and will repair anything if you throw it at them hard enough.
Well, the good news is that a couple of weeks ago when they were racing at Zolder, JR had a fairly trouble-free weekend. In fact, they've not had a particularly troubled season all year long, so hopefully they haven't had to do too many rebuilds. We just had a quick shot of Dominic Fekita in the number 49 DriveX Audi R8 LMS. That is the car that lies in second place, and that is a shot underneath at JR Motorsport. So that's what the underneath of an M3 spec E90 racer looks like. And at the moment, well, they have done this a lot of times, I'm sure. So, and as you can see, the workshop floor is fairly clean. However, oh, hang on a minute, that's the Mehmet Ogilvy car, isn't it?
I was going to say, they're not changing the engine.
No, that's the number one car. So they're looking underneath at...
I would say they're checking suspension bits.
They've got the flat floor off from the centre, so that's, So Sami Moutron brought the car in, and in fact, that is right next to JR Motorsport, again underneath us in the cheap seat. So Owen, wherever you went to, come back to the smell of the barbecues, which are out behind us. Day turns to night and night turns to day, somebody somewhere will go, hey, what if we raced all the way through? And that's exactly what we're doing here at Paul Ricard. The 24 hours will start tomorrow afternoon and go through to Sunday afternoon. Live lights to flag coverage on radiolemans.com, 24hseries.com, and 22 of the 24 hours pictures will also be available on Motors TV, streaming all the way through on radiolemans.com and on the 24hseries.com websites as well. Martin Haven, Paul Truswell up in the booth and able to answer a question for us down on pit road. Owen Mildenhall, who called in at Mehmet Ogilvy to find out, Owen, that...
Well, I don't want to disappoint you. I think I can answer the question, but not fully, because they didn't seem too happy about us filming and working on the car, because just as you handed over to me, they closed the garage door. But looking at the garage, I would suggest it looks very calm. It looks to me as if they're happy with their work for the evening, and what they were doing was just routine maintenance. But I'm going to try and find my way around to the back of the garage and find out for sure.
All right, we might have to go all ACO on their ass over shutting doors in front of the cameras, because this is all about trying to keep everybody happy, and that includes us, darn it. Checkered flag is out. Christoph Schmidt. I'm going to find that name again in a moment. Christoph Schmidt is...
You're right, first time.
I was I?
Yes.
Okay, Clement Schmidt is... see, I never trust my own judgment for reasons that Anybody who knows me or has ever listened will certainly know. Team manager car 49 has been asked to report to the race director, going, okay, talk to us about how your team of amateurs are only 4/10 off the fastest car and ahead of everybody else that's chock full of pros. There may be something along those lines.
I suspect it's probably more to do with something like track limits, or possibly the fact that I
you know we're using the full circuit, don't you?
Yeah. Possibly they might not have got all 5 drivers through. Certainly Alvarez, Paul. I'm not sure whether both Fredriksson and Zoltan Feketa got their 2 laps in. Must admit it didn't register on my system here.
Okay, that might be an issue. They might also be just possibly doing a pressure test on the air restrictor. I would have thought might be not a bad thing to do in tech. Also, haven't spoken much about the Renault RS01, the AB Sport Auto car number 43, but their team manager has been called to race control as well. Checker flag is out. The remaining cars have headed onto the pit road. It is now 10:34 Central European time. We are at an end of our rather relaxed Friday, I've got to say. For a qualifying day, it's been very quiet, very nice, and no major dramas. Everybody seems to work through getting their drivers their daytime laps. Qualifying went well, and with the exception possibly of a couple of cars, it would appear then that everybody got their nighttime laps in. Gerard Tremblay, related to Sylvain in what way, do we think?
He's either a son or a nephew.
Okay. I didn't even know Sylvain had a brother. Or sister. Well, yeah, but then if they didn't race, I probably wouldn't, would I? But again, that's one of those that rings your bell. So that brings us to an end of our live coverage of Friday's action from the circuit Paul Ricard. We're in the build-up to the 24 Hours of Paul Ricard, round 5 of the International Endurance Series. So you can catch all the action from tomorrow. We start live at... you've moved my bit of paper. Morning warm-up is at 11 o'clock. When will we be on, John? Tell me, because we haven't got that written down on a piece of paper. Check radiolemans.com for the schedule. I was just asking for my own personal information. So, as with the whole of the International Endurance Series powered by Hankook, live on radiolemans.com, live also streamed on 248series.com, and don't forget tomorrow you can also watch us on both those websites and on motorstv.com. So from Milderhall, Bruce Jones, from Joe Bradley, John Hindhoff, from Paul Trustwell, and from me, Martin Haven. We will catch up with you tomorrow morning with lots more action live from the circuit Paul Ricard. Until then, bonne nuit, dormez bien.